You know what old Jack Burton always says at a time like this?
Come on, then. I'll bite your legs off!
I can take it.
Great power comes great responsibility. We have a hope. Get to the chopper! And leave. To the flesh wound. I am the father.
Show starts in 5 minutes.
We're happy to have you with us this evening and want you to enjoy every minute of your stay here. And while you relax and stretch, visit our concession where you'll find something to please you. There are ice-cold drinks, delicious sandwiches, ice cream, coffee and snacks, and many other pleasing treats. Our foods are fresh and tasty, our drinks satisfying and refreshing. They're so good.
You get more out of life when you go out to a movie.
And welcome back to the 41st episode of Sludgecast's Monster Movie Stompdown. Of course, you got Sludge here. My co-host right across from me
is Mark.
And our brother from Texas,
Ruben.
We have got a very special episode for you today. That is the 50's Classic Monster Drive-In. Since, theaters have closed down during the COVID deal, the drive-in theaters have opened back up, and we've seen a surge of drive-in movies. People doing, I know one next to us, they've done some new movies, but they've been doing a lot of classic double features, which is just absolutely awesome. So what better way to celebrate the return of the drive-in than doing a drive-in of our own? And we've got some great classic monster movies for you. We've got the 1955 film Tarantula and then the 1954 film Them back to back. So, and Tarantula is actually Ruben's, one of your all-time favorites, isn't it?
Oh yeah, that's in my top 10. I love that movie. When it comes to the 50s American-made movies, that's way up there for me.
Man, they're
one of my favorites.
Both tons of fun. Like, they're so good. So I can't wait to get into this. But before we do, of course, now I do want to state, even though Pete Quint, tried to give Mark a heart attack with the Ship of Monsters, he made a great suggestion the other day when he found out about this episode. And we've got something special for you guys in between the movies. So stay tuned to that because it's going to be awesome.
I was a little nervous when you said Pete sent this to you. So
Pete's listening.
I wasn't sure.
I was there. I saw the reaction, Pete. I told him what you said. I said, look, he sent this, thought this was great, and returns to the movie Tarantula, and we'll get into it in a little bit, tell you. Yeah. But as soon as he said it came, I said Pete. His hand just touched his heart, and he was like, "Whoa, wait a minute!"
I know. Did you have your pills in your pocket?
Yeah, I had
little pills.
Well, what I did.
Make sure you had those little.
Actually, what I did was I ran out on the sidewalk and grabbed the first kid that was running by and said, "Here, listen to this. I want to see your reaction to make sure it's safe." So.
It's great. You guys are gonna love it.
I only picked the kid up twice. It was okay, man. It was great.
Okay.
So, but before we jump into the movies, though, we've got two little news tidbits I want to give you guys. One of those being that it was announced today. Of course, we pre-record our episode, so it's Wednesday the 23rd. You guys are listening to us on Saturday, the 26th, right? I don't want to do math. That's not what the show's about. The show's not about math. So the 26th. But so you've probably seen it, but the CW has announced season 6 of Supergirl will be the end of Supergirl. They have not really given a reason, but it will be the end. So now we've got no more Arrow and fixing to be no more Supergirl. Now, of course, that doesn't mean we're going to see the end of the Cape Crusaders because we are getting Superman and Lois next year, I think, or they start filming next year for the first season of that.
I believe it is. Yep.
So we got it, and we got Legends still hanging on by a thread. I'm really surprised they're continuing with Legends, only because it's a great show, but it's numbers. It's the lowest, for the CW. So I was really surprised it kept. I'm like, why are we getting rid of Supergirl? Then
it is good, but it's that show. it didn't catch my interest as much as the other ones.
Yeah,
you know?
I feel like Legends was more of like the direct to TV. Oh, it's a TV show. What am I thinking of? Like a streaming service show. You know what I mean? Not so
I
much
gotcha.
higher quality like Arrow, or it was more nostalgic and more for the deep fans.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, and
Yeah,
pretty much
there
every
you go.
week is something different, something new. There's something somewhere else where, the Flash and Arrow, they was right in line, and each week just kept would build
Going,
and build and build and make it a lot
and,
more.
Yeah, but then again, I said that because, there's probably going to start a big old hoop. I've always been a Marvel guy, always. I like DC, but I don't know if I mentioned it during the show, but I know I've discussed it with other people. But DC, when I was growing up, just didn't have the characters that Marvel had at the time. They had, I don't know. It just seemed like they just didn't do it. And they finally caught up in the 80s, in the late 80s and 90s that, DC caught up as far as characters go. But man, when I was a kid, it was like, they had Superman, they had Wonder Woman, they had Super Friends, and that just didn't appeal to me as much. So I've never been a real big DC guy. And I know a lot of friends that are, but I've always been a Marvel guy. So when the Arrowverse came to be, I watched Supergirl, I watched Gotham, I watched Arrow.
Gotham was great.
Yeah. I watched those shows, but I don't know much about that. I guess the correct word would be mythos, like the background on it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, like I didn't even know why Wonder Woman was wearing that gold deal in this new movie that's coming up, that gold outfit.
Oh, the Golden Eagle armor. Oh, dude.
Yeah. I didn't even know why she was wearing it. I was with a friend of mine, and he said, "You don't know why she's wearing it?" I said, "I have no idea." And he explained it to me. He's a big DC guy, and he explained it to me. And I'm not going to say it here. I don't want to spoil it in case somebody out there doesn't know.
Justin McClane will get onto us with the spoiler.
Yeah. So I'm not going to say why. I'm just going to. But there's a reason for it. I'm like, I thought it's just. No, he goes, no, there's a big reason for it. And he went on to explain it. And I'm like, well, that's cool. I like that, And he grew up when DC was he's younger than I am. So he grew up in the DC that was, when it was cool already. And I was already an adult. So, I kind of ran away from comic books.
Late 80s when like Neil Adams took over on the Batman art and all this stuff. And Batman stopped. Frank Miller started doing storylines.
Exactly.
So
I missed the DC when it was to me from Eric, all the guys that they're DC that I know of. I missed the high point of DC. Not that it had, maybe it's still going. Maybe the high point isn't hidden yet, but they call it the high point of DC.
It was. I mean, a lot of people argue that late 80s time especially was a good high point for DC.
Yeah, and I missed that completely because I was too cool for that at the time, I was too cool for a lot of things of that. Now I'm like, man, I tell people, I'm like, man, I missed out on so much because I was so closed-minded. I just, this is what I like, and I'm not going to like anything else, And now that I'm older, I'm like, man, I missed all this. So, and DC was part of that. Part of the DC in the late 80s is part of that. So I just thought I'd add that in because I don't know, there's a lot online. You got either a DC guy or a Marvel guy, and there's all kinds of debates going on.
Oh yeah, I enjoy them both. I like them both for their own reasons. So I've never been one that's like, oh, who do you prefer more? It's like it's so difficult for me because I'm like, there's a lot I like on both sides for different reasons.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we're losing another one, and of course next year we also are losing Batwoman, but we're getting another Batwoman. We'll see how that turns out.
Well, CW does. What's their online streaming? You got CW, and then you got another offshoot of CW.
I thought it was just the CW.
No, there's two of them there.
Yeah.
The Swamp Thing's coming on there.
Oh, is it the CW like All Access or something like that? That's CBS. What am I thinking?
I can't think of what
that's right. Called. Yeah. Swamp Thing is coming on over there.
It is. So they are picking that up,
which is good because more people need to see that show because that's
right.
That's the best. I mean, I'm very big on Titans. I love Titans, but Swamp Thing's the best comic book TV show that's ever been made, ever.
Now, is that just season 1 that was on?
Well, that's all there is. So yeah,
they've stopped. There's no more filming.
Nope.
They're not going to continue that. CW is just going to do one season and that's it.
That's it.
Wham.
Just the one season that was on DC Universe
Okay.
Online.
Okay.
The biggest mistake Warner Brothers ever made.
Yeah.
But whatever. So you all enjoy it. If you get a chance now, it's on CW. Watch Swamp Thing because it's unreal. So other quick piece of news is, of course, now you're hearing this Saturday. It's officially been released as of Thursday. But how SRS Cinemas, who's a great company who has brought us a lot of harder to find B movies or just lower budget horror or monster movies. They're the ones who picked up and finally got released the Riga series. So you got Rigo, God of the Sea Monsters, Riga, then the newest one, God Riga versus King Oga, of the independent giant monster films from Japan. Great fun movies. So they've brought those out. They even did Attack of the Giant Teacher, brought it over here. Well, they have got the rights to an independent film called The Howl from Beyond the Fog, which I know some people have compared it almost to something like Beast from 20,000 Fathoms. But what this is, it's an independent film. Everything that I've seen as far as the festivals and different places where it's been viewed have just raved about this film. The monster in it is called, forgot the name of it, starts with a K, Kabula, I think. But it was created by Kaizo Murase, who was the designer of the original Varan suit. He also did special effects for the H-Man. He even did Mighty Pecking Man. He did special effects for that. And it's directed by, Daisuke Sato, and he really points to the Daimajin trilogy being a big influence to this film. And what it is it's set in the Kyushu during the Meiji era, and you got a blind girl named Takiri, and a blind monster, Nebra is the monster's name, who fight against greedy developers who are threatening to take over her family's land. So you got a blind girl and a blind monster fighting, an evil empire type deal. But it's awesome because there's no real human characters. Everything's done by Japanese puppetry. So the human characters are all puppets. And then, of course, you got the monster, which is traditional suitmation. And it's just, people have just raved over this independent film. Finally getting released. Gets released tomorrow, technically on pre-sale. I'm ordering it. VHS copy because it's the best. But so if you guys get a chance, man, go online, check out trailers for it on YouTube. Hopefully pre-sales by SRS Cinema, who's just, I'm loving this company for what they're bringing over here. But they did state there'll be 200 Blu-ray pre-sales unless they max that out or they sell out all 200 by October 1st. Then they'll do 1,000 pre-sales. And the VHS is up to 50. Don't go order the VHS because I am. So, leave it alone. I want to make sure I get one of the 50 there. But they do a phenomenal job. So, I mean, that's something that I highly recommend everybody check out. People I've talked to that's seen it have just raved about the film. I'm super stoked for this one. Cannot wait for that one. So, but yes, that's a 2-bit news from us real quick. So, and we'll get right into moving to our movies. First one up, of course, is going to be Tarantula. We've got 1955 is when this one came out. And this time, too, I do want to bring up in this era of film it's interesting because these movies, especially in the mid-50s, they would release theatrically, but they would also release on rental at the same time. So, because you're starting to see the rise of some home media, coming up. I mean, you can get these films on 8mm cameras and things like that, and people would rent them for drive-in theaters, which is why we're doing the drive-in classic. So these were pretty interesting. So if you go check these out and you see like what did it gross? It's going to say rentals included on it for a reason because we're going to start to see the rise of that in this era of the 50s.
What if circumstances were to magnify one of them in size and strength, took it out of its primitive world and turned it loose in ours? Then expect something that's fiercer, more cruel and deadly than anything that ever walked the earth.
Even science was stunned. The new atomic miracle should have been mankind's greatest boon. Instead, when such power to cause phenomenal growth proved dangerously unstable, man was confronted with his most shocking blunder.
The isotope triggered our nutrient into a nightmare.
A blunder that transformed a tiny insect into the 100-foot spider that was now ravaging the panic-stricken countryside.
Steady.
Tarantula came out 1955. This is one of the many, many great giant monster, giant insect, nuclear bomb related monster films from the 50s from Universal International. It was directed by Jack Arnold and, of course, starred the amazing John Agar, who, if you watch 50s or 60s, movies, you know who John is. John was in Tarantula. John was in Revenge of the Creatures and Black Lagoon. He was in Zontar, the monster from Venus. He was in The Mole People. So I mean, just he's huge when it comes to these type of movies. The Brain That Wouldn't Die. He fought it, and John Agar is a big name to get for Tarantula for this type of film. Then you also had Mara Corday. She's in it, and she's not unfamiliar to science fiction movies. She's in this one. She was also in The Black Scorpion, which I think we briefly talked about the last episode. She was in The Giant Claw, which everybody can miss. I own it, but trust me, you could totally miss The Giant Claw and be okay. But she did a lot. She did a lot of other films as well. I think she was actually, because she's in Clint Eastwood has a small role in this film, and she was in another Eastwood film in '83. She was in Sudden Impact with Eastwood.
Really?
Yeah. So I mean, you got great actors and actresses already. Then you got Leo G. Carroll, who's also he plays the mad, not really the mad scientist, but I guess he is the mad scientist in this character. He was great. And of course, now he was in a lot of Hitchcock films. He was in The Man from U.N.C.L.E. I mean, he's Leo Carroll. Like, he's got a great career. So great cast, great director, and they're bringing us the classic nuclear affected giant monster film, and this time it's a giant tarantula. And what's more terrifying to most citizens, other than a shark, other than spiders? Everybody is afraid of spiders. What's worse than a giant spider? So pretty much when this film takes place out in I think it's Nevada, right, somewhere in that area, and
Arizona.
That's right, Arizona. Leo G. Carroll and is a scientist, and his fellow scientist partner, who we see at the very beginning of the film, all mutated and deformed, die in the very opening sequences, which is a great scene. They have been working on a serum to increase the size of food. They're trying to fix food shortages. So in their lab, you see this guinea pig that's the size of like a German Shepherd, and you see a rabbit the size of like a baby cow. And then you see, in a great sequence I love, as he walks over to see, to look at this little tarantula in a cage. When you first watch it, you're like, oh, so he's going to inject that little tarantula with this stuff. But then you don't realize behind him until it moves the massive, 4-foot tarantula that's in a cage.
Yeah.
That's the one that escapes and keeps growing. But unfortunately in humans, this has caused a deformity. So a couple of the characters are deformed and end up dying from this serum. And then John Hagar, who is the man, plays a local doctor who realizes something's going on and goes to inspect, becomes the type of hero and has to stop the giant tarantula, from coming to town and killing everybody. Great fun movie. This is an absolute blast of a movie. But instead of doing the norm here, I'm gonna let Ruben run with this one for a little bit, because this is Ruben's favorite, and he talks. You've probably talked about this movie at least 10 times on this show.
Oh yeah,
yes,
it always goes. Yeah.
So
it's always one of the movies that bring. We were talking about nostalgia already. This one is, one of the movies that. As a matter of fact, when I watched it, I had to I texted you, and I said, you texted me about something, and I said, man, I'm sitting here with a bowl of popcorn and a Big Red.
Big Red, yep.
And yeah, Big Red, and I'm just loving it. I'm just loving it. And hopefully everybody knows what a Big Red is. Somebody said that was a Texas thing, and some people don't know what Big Red is, but it's a soft drink. It's just red cream soda. That's all it is.
Oh yeah,
but,
you can get it here in
Tennessee.
Yeah. And because RJ went up somewhere and he mentioned it, and they looked at him like he had, that's Christmas Story line, like he had lobsters crawling out of his ears, and they didn't know what it was. But that was up in, I think, Baltimore, he said, or I can't remember. He went on so many trips when he was in school, I can't remember. But so I sat there with my bowl of popcorn and my Big Red, and just enjoyed the heck out of his movie. I forgot. I mean, I've seen it plenty of times, but every time I watch it, I look at it and I'm like, man, they did such a good. First, it's Universal, so Universal, and it's in the bloodline of Universal Monsters.
Oh,
and
it
you can
is.
see that in the and you can see that in the special effects, and especially in the makeup of the humans, the ones that get deformed, they get shot with the serum. And you look at it like, man, that's Universal Monster. That's Universal and Universal Monsters, and they did such a good job on it. So, and when I was a kid, this movie was like, that giant spider was just the most terrifying thing. I was like, man, look at it, and it's just, and they did so well. Of course, now that as I've gotten older, I look at it and, well, it's not as scary. But boy, when you're a kid and you're watching that, it's pretty scary. They did a good job on.
There's still one scene that creeps me out. I mean, and I'll talk whenever we get to me. I'll talk about it. But there's still one scene that just gives me the heebie-jeebies, and I love spiders.
Yeah. So, yeah, and it's just, there's just so much about this movie that I like. I like that the story is great. The acting is way above average. Even as I've grown, when I was a kid, I didn't care about the acting. I just wanted to see the giant spider. And as I've grown older, I'm like, man, I appreciate more the makeup and the special effects and the background, in the desert, that was pretty cool. And, and just how they did it, just how they did the story was just, man, it's just top notch. I could watch that movie twice a month and not get tired of it for a while, because I just love it that much. I can't think of a negative. I know that special effects don't hold up to what you see nowadays, but it's still great. I mean, when you imagine what they did in 1954 with the, I guess they used they used puppetry, and they used some wax. They used some wax type figures too, because they were talking about. Well, that was in the special effects for the humans, that the wax would melt in the desert when they were doing the makeup for the Professor Carroll. For the professor, and things like that. So, but I can sit there and watch it, and I noticed that they used the spider to keep that, I guess, to keep that sense of man, what's the word I'm looking for? Just to keep you scared. It was a lot of night scenes with the spider.
Yeah,
the spider didn't. Yeah, it was a lot of night scenes with a spider. And it's just, what, they did a good job on that, because you just never know, where they're going to come out of, or where the spider was going to come out of. And it was great. And it was just one spider for the whole movie, unlike the next movie we're going to talk about. But they did a great job on it. They did a great job. It was cool seeing all the, the jet fighters and things like that. It was just, I just can't rave enough about this movie. And a lot of it has to do with nostalgia. I just, it was one of those movies that I just, if it was on TV, it was one of those movies. And I've said it before about other movies, but this one, I was stopping. I mean, I was going, I don't know if you guys did this when I was a kid. When I was a kid, we'd get the Sunday paper. And the first thing I went for was the TV guide.
Oh yeah,
I wanted to see, the TV guide, so I could highlight what I was going to watch.
I did that as a kid myself.
Yeah. So I don't know. I mean, I'm sure we all did it. I wasn't sure if it was just me, but I figured more. It's just like the Sears and JCPenney catalog in Christmas time. I would get the TV guide, and our TV guide was set up where in the back it had all the movies listed. Man, and I'd go through there and look at all the, and a tarantula came up, man, I got excited about it. I was ready for it. You know, it was usually a Friday night or a Saturday night. Sometimes it'd be Saturday afternoon, but 9 times out of 10, it was Friday night. That's when they would do. There was a Houston station that we would get via cable here in Corpus, and every Friday night they'd go through they do like a week of just Planet of the Apes. It'd be like every movie. You know, they start on Monday, and Tuesday, Wednesday, and then culminate on Friday, and sometimes it'd be every Friday night, just depending. And they go through it'll be one Friday night it'll be Tarantula, the next it'll be Them, the next it'll be the Deadly Mantis. You know, there was always a theme to it, so I was always excited. And that's where I went straight to Friday night too, sometimes, just to see what they were going to show. And this is one of those movies that I was just like, man, I got to see that. Especially even nowadays, not so much now, but when October came around and Halloween and AMC would have their not the Monster Fest, the Fear Fest, right? What is it called now?
Well, it used to be Monster Fest, but now it's Fear Fest.
Yeah. Now it's Fear Fest, and for a while they would give, before they went to commercials and all that. It was more like Turner Classic Movies. They would show all these movies during the month of October, and I was, I'm ready for it, and Tarantula is just one of my favorites. So, I don't know what else I can say. I'm so excited about it. I'm speechless.
It is such a great movie, man. I mean,
Yeah.
it did well. It did $1.1 million as far as the box office rentals. Did a super good job with that. Actually, and I forgot to mention it too. I mean, it's got a really high ranking on Rotten Tomatoes. It's got a 92% Rotten Tomatoes score.
Tarantula did.
Yeah.
Yep. So
very, very good film. Nothing negative, Ruben?
Yeah. Not really. I mean, to me, it's not, even though we're about to talk another movie and I like it just as much, I think this is the high point for the giant monster movies of the 50s that were made in America anyway.
Oh, definitely.
And I think that has to do a lot with the fact that Universal Pictures did it. I think they had the experience, and they had the directors. They could draw from a great director. Jack Arnold was a great director, and they could draw from great actors. And it's obvious that it was done very well, and it is a high point. It could be argued there's other movies that you might enjoy better, but I think the consensus out there is that this one's the high point. But nothing really negative about it at all. And you mentioned it before, and Clint Eastwood makes a cameo, which you can miss pretty quick if you're not paying attention to the jet fighters dropping bombs. But he makes a cameo on it. So that's all I got to say about that.
Mark, what about you, man?
Well, Ruben said a lot that I agree with, because it is a great movie. And I think this, in 1955, the special effects wasn't overall, I think, that great. But for this movie, I thought they did a phenomenal job. The spider is very much alive as he's walking across the desert mountains and coming across the desert. I thought they did a fantastic job on that. It just was just great. Even the guinea pig in the laboratory, I mean, it looks like he's right there in that cage, And,
the match shots in this.
It's just
really
fantastic. And the acting, you can't knock the acting. The acting was good, and I think, and you're right, with being Universal Pictures, I think their budget a little bit higher, and they could go out and spend that money and do that and have those special effects and have everything look just perfect on location out in the middle of the desert. Just a fantastic job.
Yeah.
The only question that I had in probably the whole movie was the lab burns down.
Yeah.
The spider gets out, and nobody says, what happened to that 4-foot tarantula?
Nobody.
There's not a word said about it. I mean, it's just like, okay.
Well, I think the professor mentions that he thought it got burned in the fire.
Oh, did he? Well, yeah, I didn't catch
Yeah,
that.
he does.
That monkey
Because-
knew when he was burying that dude's
Yeah, no.
body. That monkey came running up. He's trying to tell him, in monkey language, dude, spider's out, spider's out. That monkey
Yeah.
is freaking out.
and
Yeah.
and it was and the spider grows very large very quick, and
Yeah.
but I think once you get past that little or for me indiscrepancy there of whatever happened to the spider, then it plays
Yeah.
right into it, and it's great movie. Scared me to death when I was a little kid. I mean,
Awesome.
it was really good.
I was almost embarrassed. I was almost embarrassed to say that. I'm like, well, people are gonna say, "Come on, Ruben, that wasn't scary." Yeah, but when you're a kid, it is.
Oh,
scary,
yeah.
you know?
We had the up home. It was the cemetery hour on Saturday nights. And
Oh, that's cool, yeah.
and I think that's where first time I saw it, and just it comes on like at 11 o'clock at night. I'm just petrified, thinking, "Oh my gosh, here's the spider!"
Looking at
But
every
back then,
corner of the spider.
you got to get off the floor. You would lay a blanket on the floor and watch TV, and then
Yeah.
you were up on the couch. You weren't laying on the floor because
Yeah.
spiders. So excellent movie, thumbs up, no negatives. Really, really good movie. Job well done.
I love this film as well. I mean, I'm a sucker for the 50s. Well, I mean, most any 50s science fiction movie, but especially the giant creature films of the 50s. I mean, I love Tarantula, love them. I love Deadly Mantis. I mean, I even like, it's not 50s, but Night of the Lepus. Giant rabbits. Come on.
Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah.
I love those nature dynamic films, especially if they're giant. But definitely through the 50s, when you're running through that atomic fear time, still, they did a phenomenal job with these films, and Universal just did a stellar job with this one. And I love the actors and the characters. Again, John Hagar is amazing. Okay, as Dr. Hastings in this. One of my favorite things of the film, though, has nothing to do with the spider. Actually, has to do with John Hagar and because he goes when he first shows up, he goes into his office there at that hotel or whatever, which is just a weird place to have a doctor's office, by the way.
I know it, isn't it?
Yeah. He's pulling up to the hotel. I'm like, oh, he's checking into this town. Oh no, his office is in here, and he's the doctor of the town. It's just so weird. But
and the hotel clerk is listening in to
yes,
every phone
I
call.
love that. Josh. Yeah, that's what I was gonna bring up is his relationship with Josh, the old man, the hotel clerk.
Yeah.
Which again was weird too, because I just couldn't imagine an old man named Josh was just odd. I thought,
Yeah, I know it, right?
something
Yeah.
different,
Kids right away.
Eugene, you're listening in on these, something. But and when he first arrives, Josh tells him the sheriff's calling. You need to, so he calls him in his office, and the sheriff's going off about this dead body they found, and he sounds all mad, and he walks out, and Josh is like, "You sound pretty mad." Then he goes off on him. He's like, "Are you insinuating I was eavesdropping?" Yes, I love it. I loved their relationship together. It was so good.
And what does he end up saying to her when he's talking to the lady on the phone? Hey, she hung up on you. Want me to try to get her back again?
Yeah. He's great. Or when he comes in and Mary Corday's character Stephanie is sitting there. He didn't even say anything. He's like, "Hey, you got to take her here." Like, he didn't even ask. You know what I mean? I love that relationship. It reminds me. It's like it was a precursor to Mike Lowry, Will Smith's character, and his guy at his apartment building from Bad Boys.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
that's what it reminded me of. So I love that. I love that relationship with them. But everything else is great, man. I mean, the special effects on the human actors when they started getting deformed, like Dr. Carroll or Leo Carroll's character, did a phenomenal job. The acting was top notch. There's a scene in that movie that has stuck with me with a kid, and even watching it the other day, I was like, that's just creepy. And it's when Stephanie's at the doctor's mansion or whatever at his house, and the tarantula's coming, and you're looking out that window, and then the puppet that they created just gets closer and closer and closer, and you see the eyes and the hair, and then mandibles. I'm like, dude, this gets me goosebumps every time. And then when it brings its claw in or its arm in and scoops up the doctor, and its jaws are moving back and forth, I'm like, no, dude, nope, I'm good. None of the other spider scenes scared me as a kid, but those two scenes especially, man, at the mansion when the spiders destroying it, I'm like, it just stuck with me till then. So I mean,
especially like she's like helping, she's just getting ready for bed.
Yeah,
the spider's right there, and she's just so there's a vulnerability there.
Yeah, it's so good.
That is yeah, that she in her acting, she just like, just like, man, she's just set up to, for this, kind of like, it reminded me of like a King Kong scene when King Kong's at the window and
Oh yeah,
grabs,
yep.
yeah, type of something like that. She's just she's just helpless, and I guess there's something about getting ready for bed that makes a woman even more helpless, or anybody really helpless. And I thought that was a cool scene. And you're right, that you're like, oh my God, look, he's right there in the window, look, and then
Oh, man,
he starts tearing it up, he
it's
starts just
so
tearing
good.
it all up. Yeah, and that poor doctor's even more deformed, and then the spider just grabs him and finishes him off. It's just awesome, and I can't rave enough about that makeup, even the makeup for the doctor.
Oh, it was
and for the
brilliant.
assistant.
So good.
Oh my
So
God! I'm
good.
like, man, that's so good. I said, man, there's stuff nowadays that doesn't look as good as that.
Oh yeah, I agree to
it's
that.
just great.
So I mean, yeah, super phenomenal. I think the only complaint I would have is more towards Universal, only because I hold them to a higher standard. Pretty much 90% of the special effects with the spider are great. I mean, it's a real tarantula. Used match shots to make it look huge in the desert. They do a great job of placement on it when it's on screen. But there are a couple shots, special effects wise, when they're bombing the tarantula or things like that, where I thought they could have done better. Only because it's Universal. Because I mean, yeah, it's 1950s, but we also got movies like Them, Godzilla, Beast from 20,000 Fathoms, Creatures from the Black Lagoon. Right there's a prime example. Creature from the Black Lagoon was Universal, where the special effects, even to today's standards of those films, looks unreal. You know what I mean? So I just expected, not that I think they're bad because they still look great. It's just being Universal. I mean, if this was International Pictures, I wouldn't care, but it's Universal. You know what I mean? So I'm like, I wish you would have done just you went to 10, but you should have went to 11, and it would have been awesome. That would be my only. That's the only reason why I didn't give it as high of a grade as like Ruben did. I'm slightly below, but that's literally the only reason. It's just because I expect a little more from Universal in this type of scenario.
Yeah.
Doesn't take away from the movie
legitimate.
though, because the movie is amazing.
No.
Yes.
So, but well, yeah, right. I mean, there you go, guys. I mean, we are all praising this film, all praising this one. Stomp wise, man, we gave this one a 4.25 out of 5.
Up there.
I mean,
yes.
super good. I mean, Rotten Tomatoes gave this thing a 92% rating. Still to this day, it's a phenomenal film. If you want to check out an awesome 1950s classic drive-in film, you can't go wrong with Tarantula. Anything else?
Obviously, and it's great, too. I mean, if you have kids, this is a good, for lack of a better term, it's a good wholesome movie to watch. That's pretty cool. I think that the kids would love it.
It is. Plus, it's got it's got John Agar. That's all you need.
Yeah,
right
there.
there.
I mean, even RJ came to visit for the weekend to take all his stuff. So when I was watching it, I think it was Saturday night. It might have been Friday night. I don't remember now. No, it was Saturday.
It was Saturday.
Yeah, it was Saturday night, guys. It was Saturday night, and I was watching it, and he came out and he goes, "What are you watching?" I said, "Oh, Tarantula. It's what's up for Sludgecast." And he sat there and he goes, and even he got creeped out. He goes, "Oh man," and he doesn't care for spiders much. So he like, "Oh man, look at that!" And he came back to his room. He was doing something or other. He didn't watch it. He was playing. I don't know. He's playing a game or something. But even he came out and he looked at it and he goes, "Well, that looks pretty good, though." He made that comment on the spider, and I said, "Yeah, for 1950s, it's good." So,
big time.
It's just, it would be a good movie. It was. I mean, I showed it to him when he was a kid. He just didn't remember. He said, "I don't remember." I said, "Yeah, I know you watched it on VHS because that's what I had them all recorded on." Back in the day, when you can record stuff off TV on a VHS,
Oh,
I
yeah.
got a DVR, but I still have stacks and stacks of VHSs with all kinds of movies like that. They're all there. But, there's nothing negative. It's just, and it's great.
Great movie. So, all right. Well, so that knocks out the first one of our 50s classic drive-in. And again, as we told you at the beginning of the show, we got something super special for you. And we just can't praise John Agar enough when it comes to these classic monster films. And thanks to Pete Quint.
Thank you, Pete.
A band named Dead, I wonder if it's a Dead Elvie or Dead Elva. Like, it's almost like it's supposed to be Dead Elvis, but they just took the S off. You know what I mean? Anyways, there's this band called Dead Elvie.
There might have been a Dead Elvis singing in there.
It looked like it in the video.
It did.
Maybe they are Dead
been,
Elvis, and it's just they forgot to put the S on there. Anyways, they came up with a song called John Agar Rules, and it's absolutely awesome. Thank you, Pete, for sharing this with us. Why don't you all check it out real quick? Here we go. John Agar Rules.
By direction of the President of the United States, stay in your homes. I repeat, stay in your homes. Your personal safety, the safety of the entire city, depends upon your full cooperation with the military authorities.
Yes, cities, nations, even civilization itself, threatened with annihilation because in one moment of history-making violence, nature, mad, rampant, wrought its most awesome creation. For born in that swirling inferno of radioactive dust were things so horrible, so terrifying, so hideous. There is no word to describe them.
We may be witnesses to a biblical prophecy come true, and there shall be destruction and darkness come up in creation, and the beast shall reign over the earth.
Yes, the earth, the skies above and the seas below, infested by swarms of nightmare creatures, crueler, deadlier than the armored giants of prehistoric eras. Here is a wild, headlong flight into terror as the desert erupts with the grim battle for survival. Here is a fear-frenzied moment of suspense as mankind totters before a thing that multiplies faster than it can be killed. Here is a desperate plunge into the black depths of the earth, where human courage challenges the brute force, the slashing jaws, the poison fangs that guard the subterranean nest where the beast spawns its terrible progeny.
To all units, condition red. Drain 267 is the target area. Repeat, condition red. Drain 267 is the target area.
Is there any type of gas we could use?
No, we can't take a chance. It might poison the whole city.
All right, so now that was John Agar Rules by Dead Elvie. That is an awesome song. Then, of course, right after that, you got the trailer for Them, which is the movie we got coming up next. Them, of course, we had Tarantula a minute ago with a giant spider. This one is about giant ants. Now, this one came out a few months prior to Godzilla. This came out in 1954. This one, this time coming around instead of Universal, we got this from Warner Brothers. And, of course, I mean, great crew on this film too, because this film's equally as good as Tarantula. This time we've got with Warner Brothers, of course, you get different directors because at the time, directors kind of stuck a little bit with the companies they worked for the most. If you did Universal Films, you worked with Universal. If you worked with Warner Brothers, you worked with Warner Brothers, and that's pretty much it. So this time around,
back in those days, you signed a contract with them, and you were pretty much stuck with them for the contract, if I'm not mistaken.
a lot of them did. Yeah.
Yeah. Because I know a lot of them said they. I would read. I love old movies, so like I read up on a lot of them. And a lot of them would say, Katharine Hepburn did this movie because she was contracted to do 3, and she wanted to do this other movie, but they wouldn't let her out of her contract. Type of deal. So I think that's what they did back then. Not so much now. I think now they do whatever they want. Yeah, but back then they did.
Well, director-wise on this one, man, it was a little interesting because you've got for this movie, for the director chair, that you have Gordon Douglas. Now, Gordon Douglas is no unknown name when it comes to Hollywood. However, Gordon Douglas is a very unknown name when it comes to monster films. He has a massive list of movies he did from the 40s all the way into the 70s. Of course, one of the more notable ones that I'm aware of for Gordon was the 1968 film The Detective. But as far as monster movies, this was it. This was the only monster movie he did, and he knocked this movie out of the park. So, again,
certainly did.
We're here in the 50s. It's atomic testings and bombs are turning everything giant. This time we've got giant ants. Now, this movie was stacked to the brim with great actors, too. A little bit different here. Instead of having guys like John Agar and Mara Corday, this time around you got James Whitmore. And, of course, James Whitmore is a huge actor that, everybody would know. That's my thing up here. If you don't know him immediately. Now, John Whitmore plays the cop. What's the cop's name? I can't even think of it now. In this movie, he's one of the main characters, and he had a massive film career as well. And on top of that, of course, now he was also in Twilight Zone. He was on that. He was in on the Invaders show. He was
one we did just not too long ago, The Relic.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah,
he played Dr. Frock.
Yep.
James Whitmore was in The Relic. He was in Planet of the Apes. He was an Oliver Q. He's in The Adventures of Mark Twain. He was even in Shawshank Redemption. I mean, the dude's he's been in all kinds of stuff. So I mean, Whitmore's huge, and you've got another big name in this one as well. Joan Weldon, she's in it. She was a great actress from the 50s. But another big name that I want to mention, of course, is James Arness. James Arness plays an FBI agent in this film, and Arness is awesome. Arness is in one of my most loved, hated films of all time, The Thing from Another World, where all they do is open and close freaking doors. But he plays the creature in that movie. But he does a great job in this as well. Of course, he did a great job in The Thing from Another World. But there's just too many doors.
What his fame was, Gunsmoke.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Gunsmoke.
Yeah.
Matt Dillon, Marshall Dillon.
I think everybody knows him as Marshall Dillon more than anything else.
Yes.
Well, because he did Marshall Dillon for a long time, not just the show, but he also because they did like 2 or 3 movies, didn't they?
I'm not sure on that. That's something
I'm pretty sure there was like 2 or 3 Gunsmoke films from the 70s or 80s, and he played Marshall Dillon in those as well. So I mean, great actors in this one. The one, of course, now I don't know her name, but she's the little girl in this movie. She has no real. Well, she's got a couple small speaking roles.
Her name is Sandy Desher.
Sure.
Yeah. So I know she's the Ellenson girl. As the movie starts off, you got James Whitmore, his character Sergeant Ben, is driving through, and they're looking for a girl apparently walking, and they find her, and she's just walking with this doll that's got half its head broke off, and is just terrified looking. Doesn't say a word. And they end up finding her trailer that her family was at, and it's just torn apart. Mom and Dad's gone. They find the other Ben or Whitmore's character finds the other part of her doll, realizes this is where she came from, and something tore this trailer apart. And they don't know what it is whatsoever. And then, of course, they take her back, but they want to check out this old man's convenience store. They get to it, and it's just demolished, and he's dead in the basement. He's been killed. Yep. And they come to find out it's these giant ants. And man, this movie, of course, now the ants, they end up finding the nest. They think they destroy the nest, but they don't. They don't realize at first that until every movie's got a doctor or a scientist that comes to save the day. And for this one, it's Edmund Gwynn as Dr. Medford, and then his daughter, Dr. Medford, as well, who's played by Joanne Weldon. Know that these are ants and realize these are ants, and they verify that there's 3 queens that escaped from the nest, which then make their way to Los Angeles and are hiding in the subways, and they gotta go find them there before they spread and make another colony. Just super great film from top to bottom. This movie did $2.2 million in the box office and the rentals. This is one of the very few films on Rotten Tomatoes that has 100% Rotten Tomato score.
Yes. Oh, yes.
And to me, I'll take the reins on this one. I think absolutely, definitely 100%. To me, every aspect of this film was phenomenal. When it comes to, of course, I'll take Godzilla out of the aspect here. If we're talking straight American 50s giant monster and giant creature films, this is it. This is the top dog. There's none that compares or comes, take the reins of them. If you just look at the critic ratings alone to believe it, but every aspect of this film was phenomenal. The special effects on the ants, which were all giant puppets, were amazing.
Oscar nominated.
Yeah, that's right. They were Oscar nominated. I mean, when the queens land on the boat in the ocean as they're flying out. I mean, just the attacks on the people are just vicious. They look great. The sound effects of them when they're that high pitched squeak and squeal that they make is terrifying. The music is terrifying. A lot of the scenes are not quite at night, but are at night. And some are bright in the day. You've got the dark tunnels that they're having to sort through to try and find these things. The little girl, the Ellison girl. I mean, everything on this movie was just top notch. This was, to me, I think, was the epitome of giant monster films or giant creature films of the 50s for the American made. I mean, you've got Beast from 20,000 Fathoms, which I put in high regard. Actually, I would put that, sorry, Ruben, but Beast goes above Tarantula in my book. But Tarantula's right below it. Okay. Tarantula's definitely in the top 3 for giant monster creature films. But it was a giant creature film but it was also a horror film at its core, and it had so many
Yes.
truly terrifying, horrifying moments, even without the, I mean, again, like when they get the girl at the beginning into the ambulance car, and then they start to hear, of course they don't know it's the ants at the time, but they hear them off in the distance as the sandstorm's coming in, and Whitmore's character's looking out, and so's the little doctor and the ambulance thing. But then the Elton girl, she just kind of sits up and just stares, just that ghost stare on her face.
Oh yeah.
And then lays back down.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, dude, gives me goosebumps. It's just chilling.
Yeah.
It reminds me of like the little girl from Poltergeist. They're here. I'm like,
Yeah.
she didn't say a word, and she scared me more than that girl, and every bit of it was great, man. I mean, and then there's tragic moments. I mean, Ben is, spoiler alert, James Warner character dies in this film, like he does in a lot of his films, unfortunately. He died in The Relic. He dies.
Do you really have a spoiler alert when it's a film from 1954?
Just in case,
Sorry,
who
I just
knows?
thought that. Sorry.
No spoiler in the 50's movies. My bad. But Ben dies in the subway, saving two kids that get lost in the subway. Their dad gets killed, but the boys are, they save them. So tragic, heroic death for him. But I mean, it's action packed, but it's also just a terrifying movie. And there's, to me, films like Chud really pull from elements of movies like them, especially with the underground sequences and the subways. And to me, everything, there's not a bad special effects scene. There's not a bad acting scene. There's not a bad soundtrack scene. Everything to this was just, they went to 10 and said, screw that, we're going to 11. And they went to 11 all the way on this one. No complaints from me on this movie. Mark?
Made, and what I made, 2.2 million?
2.2 million.
Yeah, it was, and you're exactly right. I mean, it was the epitome of giant monster movies from America in the 50s, and the special effects, kind of an all-star crew. I mean, even go out, and I'm just reading, Disney was there to look at James Arness for their Davy Crockett series. And they end up seeing Fess Parker, who they in turn hire, and he becomes Davy Crockett, and on to Daniel Boone, and led him to different things. And Fess Parker, if you don't know who he was the fighter pilot that was put in the insane asylum because he saw the queen ant flying. And so but I think the acting was great, special effects great. I mean, they did just a phenomenal job, and there's nothing negative or bad, I think, at all in this movie. And I think you've hit it pretty good. And, and I think the little girl, she reminds me of almost, like the little girls in the hallway on The Shining, you just look in those eyes, and it's like, oh my gosh, my skin's crawling. They have made this girl look terrifying, and they pretty much didn't do anything. She just, the way
for her.
Oh yeah. The way
props to her.
The way that stare was just, I mean, it just ripped right through you. So, I mean, overall, great movie. Just one of my favorites growing up, if not the favorite growing up. It was one of those ones that, like Tarantula, Sammy Terry Saturday Night had me scared to death. So,
there you
go. And it was good. So I'm good on that. Thumbs up.
And so, before we get over to you, I forgot to mention this too. It's so popular of a film for those who haven't seen this movie. You may have heard of it because Van Morrison named his band Them after this movie.
Wow!
And not only that, the Misfits had a song called Them that's based off of this movie.
It was
it was
definitely affected people.
Big time, man. I mean, and again, when that little girl, when she first speaks and she screams, I'm like, oh, dude, gets me every time. Ruben, you go for it, man.
All right. This movie, I mean, Tarantula is my all-time favorite, but my rating, I gave it the same as Tarantula.
You did,
because I did. I gave it the exact same rating, and I love this movie too. I think this is more. I think you touched on it. This is more of a horror movie than Tarantula is, as far as I'm concerned, because it was that fear, that dread that you didn't know, and especially they go in and they think they got them all, and then they're like, oh, wait a minute, there's 3 larger eggs that just hatched. There's 3 queens out there, and they're like, man, they don't got them, so now what, and so everything about this movie I love. I love the part because you guys probably noticed. I mean, I noticed because every time I hear my hometown should come up on anything, I'm like, hey, when that pilot is in the insane asylum, he says, that they were down in Brownsville, but he flew out of Corpus Christi.
Right.
Yeah.
He flew out of Corpus Christi to Brownsville, and there actually is a naval base here and still here to this day. And so I'm like, hey, they said Corpus, that was always a big deal for me, even as a kid. Like, hey, they said Corpus Christi. And so, I mean, I just thought the ants were awesome. And they were terrifying, especially since you never knew. You could hear them coming, but the way they did it is like you could hear them coming. Even if they weren't coming your way, it was kind of like, okay, there they come, and then it'd fade away. Like, okay, they're not coming this way.
Yeah, it was very atmospheric.
Yes, it was very atmospheric. That's a good word for it. Yeah, it was atmospheric, where you always had a sense of dread throughout the whole movie, kept you on the edge of your seat. So I really like that. I think it was more of a horror aspect than that. And I don't know if you guys noticed, but the Wilhelm screams in this several times, a matter of fact. Did y'all catch that?
No, I did not.
No.
Excuse me. Sorry for coughing.
I'm sure listeners, Sludge, you know what the Wilhelm scream is, right?
The monster scream? You talking about the one that you hear in every movie?
The Wilhelm scream is a scream you hear in Star Wars. You remember that scream? You never heard the Wilhelm scream?
Yes. Okay. No. Yeah, I know what you're talking about now. Yep. And yes,
it's in Star Wars, and I was watching it, and it's funny. I never caught it before, but it became a big thing during Star Wars, because they would put them. It's in every Star Wars movie. That scream is in every movie. So I'm watching it, and there's that scene where the ants attack while that ship's at sea.
Mm-hmm.
And the guy's telegraphing, sending SOS or whatever he is. That ant comes through and grabs him, and he does that's the scream.
The one,
yeah. Hey,
yeah. That's, that's where I remember.
I said, I know that scream. Yeah, that's the scream. And then
when Ben dies,
they do it several more times. Yeah, exactly. And then in the tunnel, he that same scream again.
Yep. That's
like,
when I
hey, that's the Wilhelm scream.
Them.
Yeah. And I'm like, oh man, this is so cool. I myself knew about the scream. I didn't realize how old it was. I didn't realize that it came out of the Warner Brothers sound effects library from the 1950s. I just didn't realize that that's how long that scream had been around. And so that was cool. The Corpus Christi part was cool. So that's the part that kind of got me excited as a kid. But the story is great. The acting is great. And I agree with you guys. Who makes that home movie is that little girl. And when she stands up Undertaker style. Yeah, when she stands up Undertaker style there in the ambulance.
Yep.
Dude, really? Look at that. I thought she was going to lose it then. I thought she was going to lose it right there in the ambulance.
Oh,
You're waiting for her to scream, And I was like, wow, man, she did. And then when he does that, I'm guessing it's the acid the ants, I forget the name of the term they use for the acid. It's the venom for the ants.
Yes.
Actually kill the people with, yeah. And they put it under her nose, and then she freaks out and finally starts yelling them. I thought that was, I said it a while ago. Props for her. She really did it for a little girl. She did an excellent job.
Man.
Acting.
Oh yeah. So good.
Oh yeah.
She just did so good, and I thought it was great. And there was just nothing bad about this movie. Even the more lighter side movie part of it, like when the doctor comes out of the plane and then his daughter comes behind him, and all you see is her legs, and she gets caught on the ladder, and James Arness and that other guy are like, whoa, what's that? And then he makes a comment like, she's a doctor also, and he goes, boy, if she's a doctor, I gotta get sick more often. Yeah, he says something to that effect, and I love this movie. And truthfully, I think I've said it, I'm a sucker for those women in the 50s. Man, I could watch those movies all day long.
Just the class.
I'm like, man, yeah, they're just a class above. And I'm like, man, she's just a beautiful woman. You know, you can't help but to admire her and say, man, she's just a good looking woman. You know, so I think of that of a lot of women from the 40s and 50s. You know, there's just a different. I think you said it better. They're in a different class all of their own.
Yep. Yep.
So,
and class, I think,
cool
is the perfect term for that.
Yep.
Yeah, that's perfect. And it's just awesome. There was nothing about this movie I didn't like. Like I told you guys, I gave it a 4.5, just like I did to Tarantula. Tarantula just wins out because that was just my favorite as a kid. But Them was right there. If Them was on, it was highlighted in my TV guide just as well. You know, it's just a very cool movie. And I think that one's a little bit more. I'll go ahead and say it. It's scarier than Tarantula as far as that goes. I mean, it's more of a horror movie, like I said before. I think it's a little scarier, only because I mean, when they drop down into the tunnels, they're down there and you don't know. They turn a corner and there's an ant.
Oh yeah,
right?
and they do a great job of making them ants just come out of nowhere.
Oh yeah,
exactly. They just poke their head out and they come through a wall, you know, and you know, and it's, you know, even with the, you know, they bomb them with cyanide and still some survive, you know. And I like how the doctor explains, you know, he has a poster up of the ant colony and he's explaining just how intelligent the ants are. Yeah. He's he's explaining how intelligent they are and how they do this and how they do that and how they enslave other insects to do their dirty work. And I'm like, man, this is awesome. You end up learning something as well.
And he did a great job as Dr. Medford. I love that scene at the beginning when he came out, take him out to the desert, to the trailer, and Ben's or Whitmore's trying to get the glasses on his face right. And cracks me up the whole time. Yeah, I mean, phenomenal movie, man. It's so good. Actually, Mark found out some tidbit that we didn't know. But before you give your little tidbit you found out, Mark, did you guys know that this was originally the plan was, or they wanted to do, was shoot this film in color and 3D?
Really?
Yeah. So Gordon Douglas even stated when one of the last interviews they had with him before he passed about this film was that, I mean, they had put like Vaseline down the ants, and they were like a really dark, weird purplish color, and there was weird colors in the eyes. And Douglas said they scared the bejesus out of them, is what he was quoted as saying. He said they were just terrifying. But they originally wanted to do it in 3D and in color, but budgetary reasons they ended up not doing it, which would have been super cool for them to have done that. So, but Mark.
Well, and I'm just looking here. When they're in the communications room in one of the scenes, the U.S. Army Staff Sergeant is none other than Leonard Nimoy.
Spock himself.
Was fighting aliens before we ever knew him.
So, and was that his first? Was that his film debut?
That I'm not sure. Just
because it's a quick scene.
Yeah,
I mean, he's
kind
of in and out.
Uncredited part.
Uncredited, that had to have been his first. Like,
and another thing, and I was saying how Disney was looking at James Arness to play Davy Crockett, but then they saw the scene with Fess Parker and said, no, that's our Davy Crockett. John Wayne saw this movie, and was so impressed with James Arness, he's the one that recommended him for Matt Dillon in Gunsmoke, in which he played played for 20 years.
He's great
as Marshall Dillon. Yeah. So which was that was pretty interesting little tidbits.
That is cool. I mean, great movies, man. Both great movies. Them definitely phenomenal. I mean, we gave it a total of a 4.5 out of 5, so just barely beat Tarantula. And again, if you're looking at it critics wise, I mean, 92% to 100% from Rotten Tomatoes. If you take anything, they more than a grain of salt, but all across the board. I mean, 50s was a great time for giant creature films, and these two are among the best. Minus not having Beast from 20,000 Fathoms on here. But I mean, especially when it comes to the bug films, I mean, there was none better. These were the two top dogs.
Oh yes,
absolutely.
Definitely.
Yeah. Oh
so,
yeah.
Super,
There's no question
super
about
great
that.
films. Like I said, you guys got to. If you haven't seen these two classics, definitely check these classics out. I mean, them phenomenal. A little bit scarier than Tarantula. Tarantula will leave your eyes wide open the whole time, anyways. Just super,
Yeah.
super good films. Anything else you guys want to add on these two?
I'm good on it. Two great
Yeah.
movies.
Two of my all-time favorites that got me with a bowl of popcorn and a big red.
Oh man,
will do that to me,
dude. I'm not gonna lie. Like I was a kid watching these two, man. Like I went back to the nerd vault and I had my soda and I kicked back the recliner, pulled down the Godzilla blanket, man, got comfortable and was just like
there you
lights
go.
off and watched both these movies in the dark and just had a blast watching them.
I got it.
Exactly. That's funny. I had a Godzilla blanket on. I was using a Godzilla blanket myself. The Godzilla
That's
85
awesome.
blanket.
That's what I had. My
Yeah,
85
it's the
blanket.
same
Yep.
thing. There you go.
That-
Yeah. That's
Y'all
it.
gotta go buy an 85 blanket first and then watch these movies. This is what you gotta do. Do it right.
I know. I got to
That's
watch it. I
right,
watched Tarantula, and then I'm like, well, I just can't stop, man. I just, and
Yeah, because you watched them back to
Oh
back.
yeah, I couldn't put them down. I just had to keep going. So it was
They're
just
so
great.
good. There's
Yeah.
just a feel, just a good feel about those 50s science fiction horror films, and a
Yes.
lot of them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like This Island Earth, man. Like I can watch that anytime. You know what I
Yes.
mean? Or any of the Wolfman movies, the
Yeah.
Abbott Costello
Oh, yeah.
stuff. I mean,
Yeah.
just that era of film was just
Yeah.
top notch.
Yes.
Creature from Black
You're
Lagoon.
and
Oh,
that's
yeah.
because
Oh, yeah.
we're that's two different. Sludge is younger than I am. We're talking about two generations here,
Yeah.
and we both feel the same way about it. That should say something about those films.
Oh, definitely,
and,
definitely.
The fact that Sludge can say he feels the exact same way I do about those films, and I'm 20 years older than you are at least. I'm 53.
Yeah,
I never
pretty
asked
close.
you how
Yeah,
old
pretty
you
close.
are.
35.
Yeah,
He's
35.
35, yeah.
35, yeah.
So almost 20 years.
20
Yeah.
years, and so 20 years difference, yet we get that same feeling from those movies.
Yep.
Yep.
It's just, there's just something about those movies, the Universal Monsters, these movies right here, that they're just, they're just, I don't want to say they're not made like that anymore, because there's great movies nowadays. So I don't want to sound like an old guy, but there's just something about those that just that
Man, they
those
just
are cross generations.
they just got an aura
Yeah.
and a vibe about them that's just hard to come by, almost impossible to come by.
Yeah.
So, but
Yeah.
guys, definitely check it out, man. Two great films. We hope you guys have definitely enjoyed the 50 Classic Monster Drive-Ins episode. We want to thank Pete Quint again for not giving Mark a heart attack this time.
Oh yeah, thanks, Pete. Appreciate it. And Pete has that same spirit when it comes to the movies, like us.
He
all.
does,
Yeah.
man.
Yeah, he does.
Yeah.
Yeah, he does.
And I'm not sure how old
Because-
he is. He's probably close to my age or something.
He's a little older than me,
Yeah.
definitely. Yeah.
Well, I'm a lot older than you.
Well,
since
you
I'm
are a
your
lot
dad.
older than me. Yeah, he's in
So,
between. He's between
okay.
us. Is where he's at. So,
yeah, but I like Pete's pick.
Oh yeah.
They didn't give me I like.
Well,
I love
well,
Super Monsters too.
No,
It was a
why?
blast.
Why?
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know.
That was Mark's Godzilla
Next
98.
next thing you know, Chase is gonna say he likes the 1998.
Never
Godzilla
going to
movie,
happen.
So.
Never
Yeah,
going to
I don't
happen.
think that's gonna happen. Yeah.
Nope.
Well,
That-
I'm never gonna say Ship of Monsters was a good movie either.
if I ever hear that, I'm gonna check around for Invasion of the Body Snatcher pods, because that ain't him.
That ain't me.
That's
And
That
I'll
ain't
do,
him.
we've got that one coming up, and I will, in all honest and fairness, I will do my best, because if I just wanted to go straight out the game, like zero freaking stomps, but I'm going to watch it. It's probably been close to a decade.
But we do have a Justin. Is it Justin? Who's the diehard?
Justin McLean.
Oh yeah.
Die Hard. And we got to work on getting him on the episode for that one.
Oh yeah.
Because I wanted to hear
Yeah,
how
I
he
think
defends
that
it.
Oh
one-
yeah. We have got to see his angle.
Yeah, I
on
mean,
this.
we've got, of course, we got God of Space Godzilla next month, but we're 3 movies away.
Oh yeah.
You know what I
Oh,
mean? From
Yeah.
this one, which kind of sucks, but we'll get over this
Yeah.
bump,
Yeah.
We're gonna get to Destroya, which pretty much
Yeah.
takes us to the next movie that is
Oh, man.
destroyed the reputation
Yeah,
for
it did.
Godzilla for a while.
But
Yeah,
I
it did.
will, when I watch it, I will, in all honesty, do my best to give it an honest, unbiased. No, I'm not. Never mind. It's not gonna be biased. Forget what I'm saying. Y'all, I'm gonna rip that movie apart.
Yeah.
Come on, man.
Oh yeah.
But
I'm gonna steal a line from somebody. Come on, man. Come on.
But so next month, thankfully we don't have Godzilla 98, but we do have another stinker coming up, and that's going to be Godzilla versus Space Godzilla. Is going to be the first one of next month for the Godzilla movies, and then we've got a Sludge pick.
Oh
we were deciding. It's been a little bit since Sludge need to pick another one, and I'm taking us all the way back to the Outback before Russell Mulcahy let us know that there can be only one. We had to fight a monster boar in Razorback.
Exactly.
Going
to be a good one.
And for those of you who didn't catch the Russell Mulcahy joke, there can only be only one joke I just made. You need to get out and do something with your life and watch Highlander because you're failing epically. So, but stoked about that one because Russell Mulcahy he was a music video director. And Razorback was his first film. He did videos for Queen and. I think he did an Iron Maiden video too. He did a bunch of different music videos, and you can definitely tell in the film. So I'm real excited about that one because Razorback takes me back to my childhood, man. I don't know. Did you show me that?
Yes. Yep.
Man, it's such a good movie.
Good one.
And I've always been.
Well, I don't know that I showed you. I think it was maybe on one of the shows that we watched, and we watched it together. I think, but it
like one Sammy Terry's or one of those we watched.
One
had
of
to have
those.
been, and that's probably the one because I've always been one that says, not that I want to see a child die in a film by any means, but if the director is willing to kill a kid in a film, the film has no bounds and is going to be phenomenal. Yeah. Razorback set that precedence for me. Yeah. I mean, poor little baby at the beginning. It ain't gonna be gruesome when you don't see it, but that baby don't make it. Yeah. So, but definitely stay tuned next month again for Godzilla Space Godzilla as we see Godzilla take on his space counterpart, and then a cheap off remake of a great mech monster from the 60s or the 70s, the Mysterians Mogera gets brought over to this film. So we'll tackle that one, and then we'll jump back to the Australian Outback with Razorback.
Sounds good.
Awesome.
Sounds good.
Thank you guys again so much for listening. This is Sludge.
And Mark.
You got Ruben in Corpus Christi, Texas. Mentioned in them.
He had to get in there with them. Y'all have a good night.
Good night.
We have a home. Get to the chopper!